Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you. Please take your seats. Thank you. Man, this is a quick response crowd. Come on, don't be shy. There's plenty of seats in the front. Welcome back. The general session's about to begin. Just as a reminder, silence your electronic devices. It helps us and it prevents you from being embarrassed because scrambling to the bottom of your backpack at the last minute is always fun. Yesterday was a great start to the symposium with many excellent speakers, panels, and tremendous networking. As a reminder, I am Brandon Smart. I am famous. I am exceptionally tall. And I am relatively hilarious. And I work for a company called IBR. It's a warfighter-centered tech firm. Today we aim to continue the robust logistics discussions and grow as we learn from yet another great set of speakers and topics throughout the day. So I wanted to first introduce our first keynote and fireside chat. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Patrick Kelleher. Thank you. Give him a round of applause. Currently serving as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense for Material Readiness. He's a retired Marine, so let's go. I can't get anything? Marines out there? No love? Let's go. Retired Marine Colonel and seasoned defense executive, Mr. Kelleher brings decades of operational and policy experience across logistics, sustainment, and global supply chain management. He led as a battalion commander in Fallujah, advised the Joint Chiefs, supported Operation Warp Speed, and held senior roles at DLA and in the Marine Corps. He holds degrees from Notre Dame, Salve Regina, and the Naval War College, and has received multiple awards for distinguished military and civilian service. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Mr. Patrick Kelleher. And to help moderate this keynote, you know him, you love him, the recently retired Colonel Kirk Spangenberg. Everybody, give him a round of applause.
You can't clap louder for me than you did for Mr. Kelleher. You come on. They love me, sir.
In your mind.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good morning. Y'all must have had some drinks last night, because good morning. There we go. All right. So we called an audible a little bit. So and based in part by some of your feedback and preference of Mr. Kelleher as well, we decided instead of forcing him to stand at the podium for an hour, we do another fireside chat. So we're going to kick it off that way. And thank you all once again for coming back. Yesterday was good, yeah? All right. And so we're going to be awesome today also. So if we could, sir, just start off with, tell us a little bit about what, for those in the audience, how many of you all have worked in the Pentagon? Okay, maybe half. So for those who are unfamiliar with what is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Material Readiness,
Right.
Talk a little bit what that is and what that means to us.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So first, thanks, Kurt, for having me. It's great to be back here again. It is just so nice to be around Marines and talk to Marines. I got a couple Marines in my office, but I got to watch my language and everything for everybody else. So it can be a little challenging sometimes. And so, even when I was in the Pentagon, I really didn't understand the framework of OSD leadership. And so, a deputy assistant, I'll start at the top. So obviously you got SecDef, DepSecDef, and then there's several undersecretaries that work for the secretary. And I work for the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, also known as the Chief Acquisition Officer, also known as the National Armaments Director. And so when we talk with our NATO counterparts, that is sort of a more universally used term with our allies. So National Armaments Director, he buys all our munitions. And so he has, the Undersecretary, Honorable Duffy, political appointee, been in the seat for about 60 days. He has several assistant secretaries that work for him. Industrial Base Policy, Assistant Secretary for Acquisition, EI&E, enterprise, something, installations and environment, I think. And the nuclear biological defense, I got the name wrong because I just changed it. And then the assistant secretary for sustainment. And so if you think about, the under and the assistants are about 4-star plus equivalents, depending. And so the assistant secretary about a 4-star. And so for the assistant secretary, there are, for the assistant secretary for sustainment, we have 3 deputy assistant secretaries. So now you're starting to get into greater specificity of your portfolio. So I am responsible for material readiness. So material, supplies and equipment, readiness. Readiness of weapon systems, supplies and equipment for the Department of Defense. So think everything, aircraft carriers to machine guns. I have 2 counterparts in working for the assistant secretary for sustainment, the DASD for product support. So think more life cycle management kind of thing. Integrating acquisition to sustainment nominally. I haven't quite figured out product support yet, but I'm working on it. And then I have my other colleague is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for logistics. So you could, so logistics, transportation, distribution, supply, fuel, think most of oversight of most of your sort of classes of supply. And so our primary responsibility is, obviously execute the direction of the secretary. But the means by which we do that is policy and money, primarily. I mean, there's a lot of other things we can do, from our position. You put your thumb on the scale for things that the services want to do to help weight the effort. And so, the way I look at what my responsibilities are for readiness for the Department of Defense is really to do 3 or 4 things. Integrate things across the Department of Defense. So the services all have great things going on, but the services think about the service perspective, and they don't. And this is not being critical. They don't think about the implications, the downstream implications of independent service decisions, and they don't have to. The Army should think about the Army. The Marine Corps should think about the Marine Corps. My job, from a readiness perspective, is to integrate those things across the department. Prioritize things that the services are working on. Help set priorities for the services. To establish, that which we should be focusing on, because there's more to do than we have time to do it, so we can't do everything. So you just got to make the short list and make the decisions. Yes, that's important, but we're not going to do it because it's not as important as this thing over here. So help prioritize and then advocate really for resources for the services. Hey, we say policy says you must do this, secretary says you want to do that. Here are the priorities. They theoretically, come back to us and say, hey, that's great. We need, $5 billion to do it. And a lot of times we'll say, no, that's what we call an unfunded mandate. You do it, we don't give you the money. Some of you have been on the receiving end of that. But anyway, I look at my job as to advocate for resources, when and where possible, and then to elevate things, either for integration across the department or to solve problems that are, common to more than one service, or even if they are common to one service. But they need additional leverage to help do that. So it's a great job. It's a lot of responsibility. I have a great team. And I'll just talk, so in my portfolio specifically, really 3 components. I have oversight, obviously readiness, 3 components. I have oversight for the department's organic industrial base. So some of you are, most of you are probably familiar. In statute, 21, listed covered depots, but there's really about 80 facilities across the Department of Defense that do stuff for the department. 4 things: we make things, manufacture. We have arsenals, which make weapons. We have munitions production, and then the aspect that you're probably all most familiar with is depot maintenance. But that's just one small part, and so of the OIB. So we have oversight of the OIB. I have a portfolio focused specifically on readiness, and we'll talk more about that. But we've initiated a readiness campaign plan because one of the challenges that we see at the department level, readiness goes like this. Readiness for equipment, not good. Requirements, going up, and so. That which we have been doing for the past 20 years or so, not working. So we've got to think about the problem differently. because you cannot argue that the weapon systems readiness in the Department of Defense is sufficient to meet our warfighting requirement. It's just not. We track 171 weapon systems, 70, and we allow the services to establish readiness goals. Like, hey, your operational availability target for this weapon system is X, whatever it is. 70% of the 171 weapon systems do not meet the service established targets. Lots of good reasons for that. I mean, it's not that people aren't doing good stuff, they are. But we are just approaching this with a more deliberate integration approach to achieve more deliberate integration to elevate things. I have a sustainment, technology, innovation, and data portfolio. So that's how are we leveraging data? What are we doing it? And how are we supporting the organic industrial based portfolio and readiness? And so in the macro, that's sort of where I sit in the food chain and the things that are important. I know that you've had some good discussions, and so happy to talk about answer any questions that you have. And I think I appreciate we doing it in this forum. Too often I think you do a talk and then you answer one or two questions and then you're done. There's a lot of questions people want to have, or want to ask and just didn't get the chance. So happy to do that and talk through priorities and the things that we're thinking about and focusing on.
Sure. So before we get to, I get to ask the first question. So it's a privilege. But if you could, one of the things you've written about and spoken about a lot is this concept of deterrence and really logistics as a deterrent. Excuse me, as deterrence. Can you kind of unpack that for us a little bit here?
No, I think it's. I think it's just what I'm trying to do. Is as you all know, room full of logisticians. Last 20 years, logistics manpower's gone like this. Logistics budgets have gone like this. Logistics has generally taken a back seat to other priority investments. And there's lots of reasons for that. We've all lived it firsthand. Give you an example, the Joint Staff going through, reductions. This is just, an example to frame. Joint Staff reduced over the last couple of years by 20%. 21%, I think. The J4 was reduced by 42%. Yeah, right? And so we, the department, have not made the investments into logistics that are necessary for us to fight and win, in my opinion. And so we've accrued a logistics debt over the last 20, 25 years. That could be because in the combat that we have experienced, logisticians have never failed. We have never failed. And so I think we have created, our success to some degree has created a bit of a cognitive dissonance among senior leaders so even though they say the words and understand I hear what you're saying, you don't have enough, but did I show you this new cool thing I'm gonna buy over here? Blows up. I think there's a cognitive dissonance there that even though we are saying it, it's not resonating because logisticians have not failed for 25, 30 years. We haven't. We have been able to make it happen, been able to figure it out because of the nature of the environment at that time. We dominated in 3 domains. We will now be challenged in 5. We will, as we are seeing, we are now being targeted. We are now facing adversaries who will use precision munitions against us. They have the cost advantage. We will not have the luxury to take the shaping actions that we have taken, that we have been historically used to taking, going back to Desert Storm. I think we're going to invade Iraq. We'll take about 6 months to get ready or invade Kuwait, and then, same thing in Iraq. Yeah, we'll invade, whenever we're ready, but we'll just take a lot of time we can't do that anymore. We all know that. And so the conditions that enabled logistics success in the past do not exist at this time anymore. And so, we continue to say, we need to invest more in logistics and we're going to lose and, blah, blah, blah. And, we understand. But it's not resonating, so I've been trying to reframe the conversation into logistics, not just as the things you need to fight and win, but a key capability that contributes profoundly to deterrence, as a different way to think about logistics as sort of a framing mechanism to validate investment strategies. So it's not just I need to buy the things to do the stuff to make sure that we can put rounds down range, but it's hey, if really what we want is not to fight at all. And so let's think about logistics in that context and building depth and resilience. All the buzzwords you hear: flexibility, depth, resilience. We are pursuing those in an environment that is completely different in order to establish the deterrent conditions such that our adversary thinks, hey, not only can they punch us in the face, but they're going to keep punch us in the face. We can deliver more than just the first, volley of rockets. We can sustain that over time, and we have demonstrated that by utilizing capabilities that we have forward positioned on a daily basis to build an integrated network that clearly demonstrates that we have the ability to endure as much as we have the ability to destroy. So we can fire the first round, but our adversaries have to think more than, wow, I need to really be able to do more than absorb the first, the opening gambit of any conflict. And so, you can think about any aspect of logistics, and you can think about it, how and why it contributes to logistics as deterrence. But fundamentally, I'm just trying to, think about it differently, shape it differently, and really get outside the logistics echo chamber. So we're not talking just, it's not logisticians talking just to logisticians, because sometimes we even make our own eyes roll back in our head because we don't understand what we're saying. But just to put it in an operational context, so that it changes, trying to change the paradigm that frames investments in capability development and logistics.
Wow. So there's a lot there. So why don't we open up? I hope we have the microphones going around. Do we have the microphones? We have a question here in front. And if we don't have the microphone in time, I'll repeat it for you. We got one coming down. Thank you.
Well, good morning, sir. Thanks for being here. I'd be curious to know, in your opinion, what are maybe one or two of the biggest problems that keep you up at night regarding our material readiness when we think about what a future conflict or deterrence of a future conflict might look like?
You only want two? I think, you have to sort of think about it. I think about it as a continuum. We want to achieve readiness outputs that enable us to have the capabilities we need to fight and win. And so the inputs to that, I think, are posture, and then you can derive posture into many different ways, because posture is not just, you get posture by having resilient supply chains and having, the ability to put stuff where you need it. So, but I think particularly in an Indo-PACOM context, posture, the things that we have to put them forward. But then we also have to be able to move them around. But we are particularly limited, I think, and you all know this. 10 million square feet short of strategic sea lift. The Army in World War II, I'll get the numbers wrong, so don't quote me on the numbers, but you can look it up, and I'm not off by a rough order of magnitude. The Army had, at the end of World War II, something like 146,000 watercraft. The Army has 137 today. And so and every concept, operational concept that the services are thinking about are predicated on our ability to maneuver. Multi-domain task force, Marine littoral regiments, agile combat employment, they're all about moving quickly, reestablishing capability, and then moving somewhere else. Yeah, how are you going to do that? Again, you go back to the cognitive dissonance. You can't. Maybe we'll figure it out some way. We'll rent a bunch of ships and all of that stuff. But, and so I just think, we have to think differently about our posture. Posture equals readiness. We have to have posture to generate readiness, but we need the distribution architecture to move things around, to put them where they need to be. because we certainly aren't going to be able to move them given whatever we think our strategic indications and warnings are going to be. And we're not moving it from CONUS. And oh, by the way, we all know that logistics is not going to compete well on limited strategic airlift and sea lift, and so you're looking at what, getting resupply out there, C+60 maybe-ish. I don't know what the exact number is. So forward posture to generate readiness, distribution to support operational concepts. I think in the macro, that's what I think about, because there's so many things that are derivative of that are things that we can control or influence. Diminishing sources of supply, long lead time parts, no commercial source of supply, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all of those things factor into posture. And so, it's one thing to throw a lot of money at it, which we're trying to do. But, once you get the money, you got to start buying stuff. And so, as you all know, I think as General Skolinka probably highlighted yesterday, tick-tock, tick-tock.
That's right.
So that's sort of in the macro what we think about.
So to pull on that thread, and then we'll come to your question, pull on that thread just a little bit. What some of the folks, we have a number of industry partners here in the audience, and you've talked a lot about strengthening the ties between DoD and industry. So what do you see as some of the opportunities to collaborate with industry to address some of those very problems that you were just talking, whether it's sea lift or littoral maneuver, data and artificial intelligence? What would you say to the industry partners here?
Well, I think, as we all know, I mean, the defense industrial base is a priority for the administration and rebuilding the defense industrial base. And, there's two components to the defense industrial base. There's the organic industrial base and the commercial industrial base. And key to the success of both of those components are obviously our commercial partners. I think my colleagues in industrial-based policy are doing an awful lot to make the environment easier to collaborate with commercial partners. So I think that's good. I mean, we're making some progress there. I think there's opportunity for better collaborations, for more productive collaboration between private enterprise and the organic industrial base if we think about public-private partnerships in a different way. Because you can then couple that with organizations like the Office of Strategic Capital and the emphasis from the administration to leverage private equity in different ways to accelerate our capability development. And so for those that are responsible for oversight of OIB facilities, I think what would be helpful is to think about how we can leverage public-private partnerships in a different way. It could be, and these are going to be simplistic examples, but you'll get my idea. Like, hey, I don't need to fix Humvees anymore, and so I've got this facility, I don't know, Red River, that maybe I don't need to do as much work on Humvees, and so maybe I can partner with private enterprise where they can install capital equipment in my facilities to do stuff, maybe manufacture energetics. And we can, it's the advantage they have is they don't have to build a building, it's an industrial facility, it's already environmentally approved, et cetera, et cetera. And then, if they take their capital equipment and put it in our building, again, being simplistic, if we're gonna do 3 production runs a day, hey, you get 2, I get 1, but when I say I want all 3, I get all 3. And so it's those kind of things that we could potentially, I think that there is potential to explore. I think the other aspect of that is, we the department need to do a better job communicating, getting outside, I use the term echo chamber again, thinking about how we find sources of supply that are new and different than that which we have traditionally been using. And so that's really, I think, for industry to think about, because a lot of that's on us. We need a part, send out an RFP. Oh, nobody answered. What are we going to do? Oh, we'll send out an RFP. Oh, nobody answered. What are we going to do? Oh, send out an RFP. I mean, literally, we go around and around, and we don't you know, people, there are industries, I mean, we can go back to think about what the United States had in place prior to World War II. And I know, you know, I know the Freedom's Forge, you know, everybody beats that to death. But there's also another interesting book that I've read that we found that was actually a reference to Freedom's Forge. It's called My Business Goes to War. And one of the things that the United States did much more effectively than we do now is deliberately communicated to private industry that if you make this thing you can also make this thing. Like if you make cash registers, you can make artillery breaches. And so I think one of the things that we in the department could do is to communicate, hey, you know, if you use advanced manufacturing to make this thing over here, you could make this other thing. Like most people don't think about that. Like if I'm a small industry, I have no earthly idea that I could be making widgets for the Department of Defense. So we need to do a better job communicating that. And you know, there was a national manufacturing registry. We were able to catalog what industrial capacity existed in the United States at the time, and then made a deliberate information campaign to help businesses understand that if they made, you know, this widget, they could also make this other, you know, Singer sewing machines. Made sewing machines. Well, they could also make ball turrets for B-17s. Oh, who would have thought? You know, they didn't have any idea until someone from the government said, you know, you got the right machining to do this. Oh, great, we're in. So I think it's that kind of, you know, just continuing to develop the partnership. It has to be a partnership. At the end of the day, we, the department, need to overcome our hesitancy or reluctance to, you know, hey, private industry, you got to make money. We want you to make money. That way you can give us the stuff we need. But there is some, I think, lingering hesitancy, reluctance, contracting officer restrictions, like, oh, I can't have industry make money. No, yes, we want you to make money. Just don't make too much.
Right.
Just keep it reasonable.
Almost like craft and Visa, but for industrial production.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole, we could talk, I mean, there is things that you could do with that, you know, absolutely. You can invest, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's been some people that have written about that, and so that, I think that is absolutely a viable concept to explore.
So we have one there, and then Mr. Boyer, I think you're next after that. And I will look over here, I promise you guys aren't forgotten, but.
Good morning, sir. A theme of the past 2 days has been joint partnership, collaboration, generally like that. But as we stand here today, Marine Corps logistics systems cannot talk to Army logistics systems. Are we ever going to fix that?
Do you want an honest answer? No. I mean, I think that, you know, we're never going to have system interoperability. But I think what AI applications bring is the ability to bridge the different data elements between systems. And so instead of thinking about like, oh, I need to make a new system, or I need to make my system talk to this system, just put an AI layer over the top of it, and it can help you develop, you know, you can leverage the APIs that are necessary, and it can help, I'll use the wrong word, curate the data, I hate that word, but normalize, that's the word I was trying to think. Normalize data across multiple systems so that you can have a degree of interoperability and common understanding that we would never get if we try to go to one system or make our systems all talk, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's super important because one of the things that we have to be able to do is we have to be able to have near real-time visibility into our inventory and into our capacity at echelon, so that commanders at echelon can make better decisions about how to balance their resources. And you can only do that from the strategic to the tactical if you have a common understanding of where your stuff is. You know, it's sort of the basics. Where's my stuff? What condition is it in? And, you know, how much do I need? And then you also need to think about when do I need to move it and how do I move it? And so if you have common visibility, you know, leveraging AI, you know, we can do that today. We are doing it. There are organizations that are doing that today. The only thing that I think that limits us in our this is my opinion, that limits us in our application of artificial intelligence is the degree to which we choose to spend or not spend money on companies that provide AI solutions.
Indeed. John.
Sir, to what extent in your role are you able to collaborate or influence the actions of Defense Security Cooperation Agency or foreign military financing or the FMS program to work with allies to leverage logistics?
I'm sorry, say the last part again?
How are you using programs like that to work with your allies to leverage logistics and logistics solutions? So
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I would say in my current capacity, I do not work directly with the SEA or have involvement with foreign military sales. However, when you think about those capabilities and what the United States, what the Department of Defense is doing with those types of programs, I think you need to weave that together, weave those capabilities into a framework, into an ecosystem that you can more effectively leverage from a regional perspective. And so, we talk a lot about the regional sustainment framework. It's a cool new buzzword. It's good that it's getting attention. But from a Marine perspective, it's nothing more than everything that we've always ever done. But from a strategic perspective, regional sustainment, I think, requires a multi-echelon integration of an aspect of all sorts of different capabilities. Foreign military sales is one. Foreign military financing is another. It necessitates very close collaboration with partners and allies from two perspectives. One, if they fly use the same equipment that we use, we should be able to help each other fix our stuff. Two, partners and allies also have commercial capability that is resident within their countries that we should be able to effectively leverage, and so put those agreements in place. Three, we need to understand where and to whom we are selling what, how much do they have, so that we can better integrate that. Deployable organic industrial capacity. I won't say deployable depot capacity, but I would say, because that gets people nervous. Oh, you're going to take away my workload.
Yeah, well,
You're not.
we can talk, sir.
Oh, yeah, right. Organic, I call it organic heavy
Right.
maintenance, because it's not depot maintenance, but I need to go out and fix tanks and fix ships and things like that. And then you sort of underpin all of that with forward posturing. So you have operating stocks of all classes of supply, forward postured, so that you have what you need in order to leverage whatever echelon of repair, whoever is going to do the repair, whoever is going to do the co-sustainment. You have the network, the foundation established, and then you can also talk about National Guard partnership program. Because we have very close relationships with a lot of countries that the National Guard has been developing over decades. That needs to be woven in to this. So when we talk about sustainment or co-sustainment or regional sustainment, it is the interweaving of all of those things, of which foreign military sales is an important part. And I will tell you, even though we're not directly involved, I am aware that generally speaking, of what's happening. And it's a very slow process, and there's a lot of efforts underway in the department to make that process easier, faster. And so I think that, it is an important part of that sort of regional sustainment ecosystem.
Sure. So Dane has a question over here, and then we'll keep my eyes over here. Go ahead. And for the record, back at MDMC, my old job, the mission statement did say worldwide organic field and depot level maintenance. So it does the whole thing, and we have a workforce that deploys, so it's all really good stuff.
Well, and I think, so I got an assessment going on before we get to the question. I want to understand across the Department of Defense what each service has in deployable maintenance capability, heavy maintenance capability. Because the department, I don't really have a good understanding of what that is. And I think more importantly, the services don't have a good understanding of what the other services have.
Sometimes they don't understand what they themselves have.
Well, that's true. And so I want to do two things. I want to assess, what do we have across the Department of Defense? What does the Marine Corps have? What does the Navy have? Army, Air Force? And then, relative to service established requirements, what are the deficiencies? So I don't want to get into a debate about how much we should have, or what do we need, hey, what do you say you need? And I'll advocate for that delta. And then I want to, understand that capability more broadly so that we can share that across the Department of Defense so that the Air Force can understand, that the Marine Corps has going to plan to have this capability over here. Hey, when you land your jets over here, you might be able to tap into that. Right. And the Navy's got a very robust ship repair capability. Well, they can fix tanks too.
Right.
And the Air Force GENIS deployable capability fixes aircraft. Well, Marine Corps flies aircraft too. So it's just better integrating that. I'm sorry.
Staying with all that theme then, the Marine Corps is looking at the Global Positioning Network, the GPN.
Yep.
Army's looking at the same thing.
Yep.
But what is OSD getting after, or helping to get after, really positioning the munitions forward?
Yep.
Because I know in the Philippines, you can only have HADR stuff, staged over there.
Yep.
They call that the GPN.
Yep.
But really, we need the critical munitions
Yep.
pre-positioned.
Right.
And a lot of countries don't want to have those munitions in their country because that's a war footing.
Yeah.
So what are we doing right now at OSD to kind of get past that?
So I would say I'll answer that in two ways. First, you mentioned the Marine Corps Global Positioning Network, so from an OSD perspective, DLA has an initiative called their Global Resilience Initiative, which is in some way an effort to tie together service requirements globally and then execute centralized purchase of those assets so that the department can put them where the department best can utilize them. Because, and again, I'm not, no fault to the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps wants their stuff here, and the Air Force wants their stuff there. And, so if, when on the Joint Staff, I started looking at this, and so my concern was, to have a pile of Marine Corps stuff next to a pile of Navy stuff, next to a pile of Air Force stuff, and everybody's renting their own warehouse, and there's a DLA warehouse down the street that's half empty. And so we need to integrate that better, and I think we're making progress. And so we have a DLA has submitted a significant resource request to fund a Global Resilience Initiative, which will have tangential and direct effects on service ability to leverage that. And so now to answer your question about munitions, I think the challenge in munitions right now is that given our inventory levels, current inventory levels, it would be difficult, it would be difficult to forward position all of the munitions we need where we ultimately might think we need them. And so we're working on that. And so I think that foundational to that, you need to back that one step up, back it up one step and say, what are we doing to invest in increasing our magazine depth? And I will tell you that the department is doing an awful lot to accelerate munitions production, to accelerate our production capacity, to increase the depth of critical munitions, and then starting to look across the board at munitions writ large. And then we can start thinking more aggressively about where does all of this stuff actually need to be. But you're right. There are challenges with particular countries and limitations. I think we work through those over time. I think we see there is some flexibility. I don't have intimate. I mean, that's like an OSD policy thing. They can worry about that. But yeah. I mean, I think it's a well recognized challenge.
All right, we have one down here in the front, and then I see you back there as well.
Well, you mentioned the state partnership program, in essence, with the states helping foreign nations when they go through their humanitarian assistance, disaster relief crises, and things like that. With the deficits that we have compared to our adversaries on shipyards, shipbuilding, container ship capacities, icebreakers, things like this, from 2008 to 2016, 4 consecutive commandants of U.S. Transcom requested appropriations to acquire hybrid airships to move CONUS to OCONUS anywhere in the world within 96 hours with 500 metric ton payloads. Is there any interest at this point to bridge the gap of logistics and look back at old legacy systems like that due to funding gaps or whatever were not acquired?
I am not personally aware of any efforts You're right, and there had been a lot, hybrid airships, blimps, call it what you will. There was a lot of interest in that, 10, 15 years ago. I think I am not aware of any efforts ongoing to pursue similar capability. But what I will tell you is that our inter and intra-theater lift challenges are well recognized. And so whether we're pursuing hybrid airships, I think the technology has advanced to such a degree, and that it is now within the realm of feasibility to start thinking about 500 tons delivered anywhere in the world via rocket. We'll quickly get into different classification levels, but it's some really interesting stuff.
All right, we have a submarine here.
Morning, sir. Appreciate you being here. Having just been up at Headquarters Marine Corps at CD&I, did a lot of the war gaming and force design efforts and whatnot. And, yesterday General Skalinka talked about conceal versus reveal. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about deterrence. A lot of that means presence and posturing and the global positioning network and allies and partners. We talk about we need to have a stand-in force that's resilient. We need to be forward, like you brought up. We're not going to project from CONUS. If you're not there in the first 30 days, you're not going to get there in the first 120. It's going to be very challenging. And I understand we're not in a secret environment, but you've been asked a couple questions about things that keep you up at night. When you're having these meetings, how much does the paradigm of conceal versus reveal, come to mind for you? Because logistics as a warfighting function, General Berger, when he was Commandant a few years ago, spoke at the Logistics Commanders course and spoke about, how he understands conceal versus reveal. And he had a very beautifully simple way of explaining it, that you reveal capabilities to prevent conflict, and then you conceal those to win a conflict. Sometimes I feel we focus on just doing our jobs, providing that sustainment function, and we don't think about ourselves as building that Iron Mountain enough. We don't worry about, showing our hand. So is that something that is in the conversation regularly, or if you can get into that at all, sir?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I would offer, I think that kind of conversation is probably more rightly held at the service level, where you are talking about the application of logistics at the operational and tactical level. From the department's perspective, a lot of it just comes down to buying stuff, and providing the resources to buy stuff. And so, that's kind of difficult to conceal. But I would offer, to your point though, revealing or open knowledge of what we are investing in and how we are building depth and resilience, even if those investments don't actualize for several years, the mere fact that we are making those investments and moving in that direction, revealing that, has arguably, and you could argue the counterpoint, that it could accelerate what, our adversaries are trying to do. So you could have that debate, but, revealing that which we are investing in could have a deterrent effect in and of itself. But to be honest, we don't really, that's not something that is part, at the forefront of the conversations. But I think it's 100% relevant at the service level to think about, how you are, how capabilities across the board are being employed. That's a good question.
All right, I have one in the back, and then this gentleman right here at the Master Gunny back there. Go ahead. We need to move the microphone around. Sorry. But we need it in the microphone for the recording. Sorry.
I was going to say, is he gunning? He can. He didn't need a microphone.
Use your gunny voice.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
My biggest question for you at your level of command, where you can see all the way down to the lowest level. So right now I'm at VMFA 312, Beaufort, South Carolina, one of the oldest air stations and Marine Corps. Recently just came back from PACOM doing a UDP. In the last few years, after working with the MU, currently came from Camp Lejeune before I went here, myself and a bunch of other chiefs were working on the modular logistics concept. One, to downsize our footprint for all these buzzwords, conceal, deter, and cover concealment. The biggest thing is, of course, everyone talks about the money, the budget, everything else. We have been doing the math, crunching numbers, reaching out to industry directly. We have found ways to save the DoD tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but no one's listening. So I just wonder if at your department, has anybody thought of modular logistics, downsizing the footprint, going from the OIF concept of big trucks, big containers, big ships, where we can literally mobilize a squadron, like right now we're testing that out. We can mobilize an F-18 squadron, deploy within 24 hours, kill the enemy, come home. But right now we're just missing the investment in logistics. Just wondering, at your level, sir, have you heard about that? Is your team working that?
Yeah, I would say that's fundamental to a lot of what we are doing. I think you're right. You're right on track in terms of thinking about the paradigm is different. We aren't going to have the luxury of offloading ships, so things need to be modular. They need to be easy to move. They need to be deployable in a rapid way. What I have my team looking at is, in order to support that, in order to support dispersed maneuver, distributed operations, from a maintenance and logistics perspective, and I have an assessment. We have an assessment that we're getting ready to kick off. What are the tools, test kits, and diagnostic equipment that we need more of that doesn't make the investment cut line because nobody thinks that it's important? But I guarantee you that if you need to make your F-18 fly, you need to test the thing, and you have one thing to do the testing, and it's at Cherry Point. That doesn't support maneuver. And so what we are looking at from that perspective is, what are the single point of failure sets, test kits, tools, diagnostic equipment that are in the Department of Defense? And then to take that one step further, what are those equipment requirements necessary to support the operational concepts that the services are articulating? Because I don't think we've really thought that through, because there are deficiencies at the operational, there are maintenance capability deficiencies at the operational and tactical level that we don't have a good, you guys probably do, but we don't have a good understanding of where those deficiencies are. And so that's why I'm doing the assessment, to elevate, to highlight, and then I can start to advocate to build that depth that will be necessary to support distributed operations. I went last year maintenance symposium. We had some folks with their brought some of their tools in here, their maintenance challenges. And I'm not making this up. There's the one box manufactured in 1962 that is the one thing that does the thing for all B-52s. And we can't take it apart, sir, because if we take it apart, it won't work. So we don't know how it works. It just does the thing.
Wow.
And so those are some of the challenges that we have, particularly with aircraft. We can't. The whole point of regional sustainment is that we do things forward, and so we do not want to send things back to CONUS for repair. But that means we need more things to do the repairs with. And so that's just another layer that, when I talk to the services and folks who are, it doesn't rise above the cut line for investment. And so that's why I'm trying to highlight those kind of things.
Perfect. Yes, sir.
And sir, for the last question, just to add on to that, I really hope DC Aviation actually gets that up to the commandant's level and to the joint staff and to OSD, because those lessons learned, perhaps maybe that will better define or better provide information for the assessment that's going on. But that's a common trend to everything that I've seen or witnessed, is that the right people don't get the right information from the people who are doing the right things. I just made that up, so hopefully that made sense.
Well, it's
But-
being recorded, so
Yeah.
you'll get credit for it.
Winning. To add to the other piece that you were talking about, foreign military sales, foreign comparative tests also is a big deal. So through OUSD R&E, research and engineering, they have other pathways to do the things that were being talked about with allies and partners. And not to toot McWill's horn, but McWill is doing some pretty fascinating things with vessels. As everyone already knows, the Joint Force, the Allied and Partner Force knows our biggest shortfall is littoral really it's maneuver mobility and sustainment.
Right.
We've dropped the maneuver for some crazy reason, but even to maneuver capability sets, people and equipment, not just one or the other, around the battle space is a late to need
Right.
thing. So part of that is going back to, it's a two-part question, sorry, all of that to say.
So I'm a Marine. I can only do one part at a time.
Well, for the first part then.
Okay.
In terms of policy, what is the department doing to change, actively change, not just through Congress, but the department pushing really hard to change, and there's a reason I'll add why I'm asking this question, legislation and policy, specifically the Jones Act and the Maritime Cargo Preference Act of 1904. And why I'm asking that question is there is a lot of things that MSC promises they can do, and Transcom, love them. I'm a retired LDO mobility officer, combat cargo officer, so I love Transcom, I love MSC, I love STDC. However, they can't do what we need them to do in the time that we need them. Although they advertise within 96 hours, they can provide a ship to move anything that we need. In 2023, we proved that that is actually false. We couldn't get a particular required ship to move MV-22s from Hawaii to the Philippines. So that sounds great to leaders who make decisions, but the reality is that's BS, and it's not real. So when are we going to actually empower industry, much like you referenced Freedom's Forge, and I'm going to read that other book that you mentioned.
You only got to read the first 100 pages.
Okay. But what are we doing to actually set conditions for industry to provide that late to need gap that Transcom, MSC, STDC are incapable of providing in the timeline that we need?
So I think actually we're doing a lot, and that I would really, I think you've all seen the executive order on shipbuilding, expanding our commercial industrial base to accelerate our ability to build ships. And I think as the Marine Corps is doing, thinking about littoral maneuver in a different way, low profile autonomous vessels, we don't have to, and so first, the department's making a lot of investment into enhancing our domestic shipbuilding capability. And so, but that's, as you know, a multi-year challenge. But, okay, so we're doing what we can in that now. I think the alternative is things like the Marine Corps is investing in low-profile autonomous vessels, and there's a lot of work. We are actually partnering with the Army, the Strategic Capabilities Office, and the Navy Joint Logistics Over the Shore Program Office to actually build right now. I have funded a risk-reducing, low-profile, ocean-going vessel that could change the paradigm of how we move cargo, because we could make thousands of smaller autonomous craft as opposed to, one $300 million TAKE that provides a nice big juicy target.
And it also doesn't operate half the time in the Pacific,
Well,
which makes it not really
And so,
relevant in the Pacific.
So I think there is a lot of interest in thinking about how we do intra and inter-theater sea lift. Like I said, we've got money with SCO. I made an investment. We're building a prototype, risk-reducing prototype right now. I talked to the commanding general of the Army Contested Logistics CFT yesterday. I'm doing a podcast with him on Friday. And so lots of interest in rethinking how we can do things differently. And so I think that's good. I mean, it's just, are we going to get there in time? I mean, we need to accelerate. There was in reconciliation, there was quite a bit of funding for autonomous vessels. Hopefully we can direct some of that to logistics platforms, or at least dual use platforms, to get around the things like you talked about, like Jones Act. I describe what we're working on as nothing more than an ocean-going 18-wheel truck. And that could move autonomously between islands. And now you're Jones Act compliant because it was made in wherever.
And so to that line, it's also, and I'm sorry for taking up so much time, but this conversation is incredibly important, and especially at your level because of the influence for the joint force that you have. But some of those things, even offloading, we know that compromised ports are compromised, husbanding agents are compromised. So being able to offload those capabilities once they get there, we need to be able to go to the beach. That's the most important thing.
Well, we can talk more about the one we're prototyping because it can do that without
That's
MAT.
awesome. Super excited to learn about
Marines
that.
might get wet, but
That's okay.
I know.
We're amphibious.
Right.
That's the rumor.
That's a rumor. But I would challenge OSD to pay attention to a particular project that McWill is working on, the Stern Landing Vessel Sea Transport Solution, the Australian design, because that's going to be able to achieve what is needed in that theater, and they have over 30 years of experience with that design. That design partnered with industry, and that's just why I asked about the Jones Act piece, is the U.S. shipyard capacity is not capable of producing the number of ships that are needed in the timeline that we've established.
Right.
We need to trust and invest and build overseas that are currently in the first island chain, present steady state, operating every day, supporting the Marine Corps and the Joint Force.
Yeah,
that's the piece that we need.
I agree.
But thank you for the time, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you're right on target. I mean, I'm not tracking the specifics of that platform. I've heard of it, but yeah.
As we think about some of those capabilities that you were just talking about, sir, and you also mentioned the investments and the importance of the organic industrial base. We have these facilities that they do depot maintenance, but as they tear down things and rebuild things, that comes with the ability to create and make things. So how are we thinking about, from the department level, leveraging the DoD's organic industrial base collectively with commercial sector relative to the creation and fielding of these new technologies, new pieces of equipment?
So I'll give you two aspects on that. Number one, I 100% agree that the department can do a better job leveraging the manufacturing capability of the organic industrial base, because there is excess capacity out there. Maybe not at every specific depot, and hey, I'm overworked, but in general, there is excess capacity to make things. And I think that what we could be doing a better job focusing on, is making manufacturing parts that are readiness degraders for legacy platforms for which there is no commercial viable solution. Nobody wants to make it because we only need 5, and that's not economically viable. Nobody's made it in 37 years. Nobody knows who owns it. So I want to do that to leverage the OIB more effectively. And so we're going to be rolling out in the relatively near future what I call the OIB marketplace. I think we might have talked about this in the past, but basically it will be a marketplace that enables anybody in the department, industrial, that needs a widget made, to share that requirement with anybody else in the department that could potentially make the widget. That way we can, then it'll be sort of grassroots self-leveling. That way we can tap into more effectively manufacturing capability, that latent manufacturing capability, and focus on long lead time parts, not economically viable to commercially produce. We don't know how, nobody's made the thing. We didn't ever think it was going to break, but now our plane is 60 years old, and so we lost the plans in 1972. And so it's those kind of things, and so that we are doing that, and we'll roll that out in the relatively near future. The other thing, to your point, is leveraging the OIB manufacturing capability, and we are focusing specifically on, and we actually have we've solicited from the services input on an MIT-provided low-cost, mass-producible unmanned aerial system. Nice. And so that's out there for assessment. We just need to understand, as industry ramps up, how and where the OIB could contribute as a bridging capability, because we should theoretically be able to pivot, make that's the purpose of the organic industrial base, is to provide depth, resilience, and flexibility to the department. And so we are actively looking at those things and soliciting input on that one specific design, but more broadly I would say, if any of you all in your capacity, knows of a project that, hey, we've done the design, we've done the assessment, we've done the cost, and hey, with a couple $1 million, we could start, capital investment, we could start producing things, like send them our way. Because those are the kind of things that I could inject into the process, and maybe we could help walk away with a couple $1 million to start, even to prototype. Hey, here's the example of the kind of thing we can do. So, and there's a lot. I know everybody is thinking about this. But a lot of times those ideas don't percolate. So if I'm just, if you are, if you know of someone that's got, it is of high interest. we are munitions is of very high interest right now. And so any way that we can accelerate the production of, or at least, even if it's not an enduring solution, but we can make a bunch and we can reveal that we're, hey, we've got this capacity now to make 5,000, make people think as we, institutionalize that, in the commercial industrial base. So I think we, absolutely.
So I will selfishly take one more question, and then we might have time for one more after that. But we have a whole panel on 3D printing a little bit later. But you mentioned the OIB marketplace. But I know one of the other things coming out of your office is the digital manufacturing exchange with this advanced manufacturing competitive advantage Pathfinder program.
Yes.
So if you could tell us a little bit about that and how that's going to affect readiness.
Okay, so my office is the advocate for the institutionalization of advanced manufacturing for maintenance and sustainment. My colleagues in R&E are also driving advanced manufacturing capabilities, as are my colleagues in industrial-based policy. And so I think this week or maybe next week, I've asked them to sit down with me so that we can cross-level across the department who's doing what. And so I say that up front because there's a lot, you'll be shocked, I'm sure, confusing information coming from the Department of Defense. I know, just throwing it out there. So I'm trying to cross-level between R&E, myself, and IBP in terms of who is doing what for advanced manufacturing. What we are doing, 4 things. Number 1, you mentioned the digital manufacturing exchange. In plain language, I would say that is our secure, unclassified network for the Department of Defense to transmit with confidence technical data packages from point A to point B so that I know that the file I received is the file I sent. And so that we have an assurance that the widget I print is the widget that was designed and contained within the technical data package. So we should be able to scale that. I want to transition that to a program of record this year. I think we're on the cusp of doing that. We're at Trident Warrior doing some other demonstrations. So it's going to be some upfront investment. I've talked to my colleagues at DLA about assuming program management of that digital manufacturing exchange, and that it's more than just the network. It's a user interface and all that kind of stuff. But but at the end of the day, it is the network that will enable the department to scale advanced manufacturing in the way that we hear a lot of talk. Well, I want to have this 3D printing farm, and okay, so you still got to transmit the files somehow. Right. And then we need to better link the data repositories that the services are developing. Each service has its own. And really not even at the service level, there are data required. So it'll enable us to better link that. So that to me is really foundational. We're going to do a couple other things too. One, we are working at the DoD pace, unfortunately, on policy for the Deputy Secretary to disseminate to hopefully achieve or direct part certification reciprocity, number 1. So if the Marine Corps certifies a part for form, fit, function, the Army doesn't have to do the same thing. The Army wants to do the same thing, and I think the Marine Corps wants to do the same thing, but we don't need to. A couple years ago, DepSecDef Hicks published guidance that directed ATO reciprocity. And so if a service established a system and gave it to authority to operate on the Department of Defense's network, the other services didn't have to do the same thing. And so we'll save some time. So we want to do that for parts, form, fit, function, but also for manufacturing process. So if I use this printer with this material and produce this widget using this design, that process is certified and should therefore be acceptable across the department without having to reintroduce or go through the whole process again. The other thing we are in the process of creating is a whitelist of equipment, advanced manufacturing equipment that is certified for use on the network. We have a common repository of all the machines that are certified for use. And so that when you want to buy a new one, you can go to the list and say, oh, I'll buy this one because it's already certified. Now you can buy another one if you want,
Right.
but then you got to go through the process. But once you go through the process, let us know, we'll put it on the list. And so we're working on that. And so those are a couple of the highlights that we are doing with advanced manufacturing. I mean, I think it's a great capability. It's not the be all end all, but it's an important part of important weapon in the portfolio, particularly when you can start to think about it from a regional perspective. Partners and allies, I think Trident Warrior transmitted a part to a Japanese firm to print the thing.
That's right. It's pretty cool. Spotify type, right?
Right, and built in the network is you're authorized to print 5, and I pay for 5. Hey, can I have print 5 more or whatever? So all of that remuneration process is theoretically will be built in.
Proud to say the Marine Corps is partnered with OSD on that very initiative.
Yeah, it's one of your guys working for me.
That's right.
Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job.
He is. But I think that's all the time we have, though, sir. Unfortunately, we could probably talk about this stuff all day. But ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Dazzy and Mark Hightower.
Yeah, thank you.